Hey everyone, I'm Stefano, as you all know, from 10 Bagger Stocks, and with me today I have Michael Konnert from Vizsla Silver Corporation. He's the Chief Executive Officer. Hi, how's it going, Mike?
Good, Stefan. It's good to be on your show. Appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today.
Awesome. Yeah, I was looking into your company, and it's a Canadian company, but the mine that you're working on is located in Mexico.
Yeah, that's right. We started the company here in Vancouver, where I'm from, and searched all over the world for projects. We originally had a Canadian project, but ended up in Mexico because it's best place for silver.
So yeah, that's what I was going to ask. That's one of the questions I was looking to ask. Why Mexico?
Well, Mexico has been the top global producer for silver for a number of years. There's something about the historical geology of Mexico that allows silver to occur in higher quantities and concentrations than most other places in the world. You often see a lot of silver in Latin American countries like Peru and Argentina, but Mexico has by far the biggest deposits of a certain style, which is what we're targeting. These epithermal underground high grade silver veins that you find in Mexico. So we were drawn to that aspect, the potential for size there, but also in Mexico you have a lot of projects that have been held by private companies for many decades and have never seen the Canadian public markets, and it's possible to go in to Mexico and acquire assets that have huge potential but have never been explored, which is what we did here at Vizsla.
Awesome. So that sounds quite interesting. It's these, you called it silver veins.
That's right. Yeah, it's the silver's hosted in quartz veins. It's kind of what you would imagine thinking of the old prospectors with a mule and a pickaxe hammering into veins of gold and silver. That's the style of mineralization that you see in Mexico.
So it's a high tier type of asset where it's there's a very high grade of gold location of silver in this location.
Yeah, and gold as well. So
So
to
will you be mining both?
yeah, it's about a 50-50 mix between silver and gold. Historically, over the years, it had been more like 60-40, but with gold's price performance recently, it's closer to 50-50 silver and gold. But the gold and silver occur alongside each other in pretty much the same mineralization. So when you're getting gold out of the ground here at this project, you're also getting silver and vice versa.
Awesome. So that's very interesting. So this is you get exposure to both metals with your company over here. And
Exactly.
I think that's what a lot of people would be looking to do. Some people wonder, well, do I want silver? Do I want to invest in gold? And this might be a way to get exposure to both of those precious metals. Are there any other metals that you'll be mining in smaller quantities?
There is very small amount, maybe 5% of the project economics of base metals, lead and zinc, but we're not capturing those. We're not actually producing those in the upcoming mine here. And what I like about having the silver and the gold is that you have the stability of gold with the upside of silver in this deposit. So there's really two ways to win.
Awesome. I have some other questions for you. What inspired you to found Vizsla Silver, and how has the company's mission evolved since its early days in the Panuco Silver Gold project?
So when I started the company, I think I was maybe 30 years old, and I had just sold another mining company called Cobalt One. And what I had done there was consolidate, very similar to Panuco, but consolidate an old historic cobalt district in Canada, in British Columbia, with my business partner Craig Perry, who's the chairman of Vizsla Silver now. And we were really attracted to cobalt because of its applications in electrification, particularly with electric vehicles. And everybody at the time, this was kind of mid to late around 2016, 2017. And everyone at the time was talking about lithium. Lithium was an excellent trade. People were making a lot of money in lithium, but no one was talking about cobalt. And so I understood that there was far more cobalt in these batteries than lithium, and it was much harder to find cobalt, and certainly in places like Canada where it's not being child mined, the majority of cobalt is being mined by children in Africa. So we set out to solve that problem in whatever way we could by acquiring these projects, and we developed this project, and as we were doing that, we transacted on it. We sold it to an Australian company that wanted it, and that really kind of set the stage for us to build Vizsla. And the idea behind Vizsla was that I was working then with, as I mentioned, with Craig Perry, who founded NextGen Energy, a huge uranium company in Canada. Worked with Rio Tinto as an all-star geologist and businessman, but had just moved from Australia to Canada. We hit it off, started a partnership, and then we also partnered with and aligned ourselves with a fellow by the name of Simon Smirlik, who's our chief operating officer at Vizsla Silver. Simon's one of the world's great mine builders. He's built 45 mines all over the world. And so we had this idea of, let's build a company that we can combine, my skills in terms of business and corporate, finding these assets, Craig's geology skills, and Simon's mine building skills. And that was called Vizsla Resources. And it was a very, very small IPO, $2 million IPO on the TSXV, 2 million market cap, I should say. And we set out to acquire projects and look at projects. So I was traveling all over the world, South America, Ecuador, Chile, went to Africa and the United States looking for the next big project that we could work on. And eventually I was introduced to this district here in Mexico. And Craig and I went down, looked at it. The first day that we got to the project, we were just blown away by the potential. It was an operating mine with 2 mills, 2 small operating centers, but it was all done very small scale, very artisanal, independent kind of family-run mining companies in Mexico. So we determined that day that we liked what we saw. We were truly blown away by the potential there. So I spent about a year in Sinaloa in Mexico working with these families and bringing these deals together. And if you remember, I said it was a $2 million IPO. So it was a small company. By that time, we were maybe a $10 or $15 million market cap company. But we entered into an agreement to buy these mines for $43 million US. So it was, for a company of our size, it was a lot of heavy lifting, not only to raise that money, but to convince people that we could do it. And, we had to basically combine exploration success, relentless marketing and determination to acquire the properties for that amount. But over the years, we've raised hundreds of millions of dollars for the company, and we drilled 400,000 meters. We've gone from a $2 million market cap company to I think recently we hit around 2.5 billion Canadian. So it's been incredibly rewarding for our shareholders over that period of time. But of course, we're just getting started with Vizsla. There's a huge amount left for us to grow here.
Awesome. So that's a very deep story that you have there with this project. So you started with other companies with cobalt, and you got a lot of experience there. And you said you were working with people that were involved with NextGen Energy. I'm sure a lot of people know of that company, as uranium was a very hot sector, has been for the last few years. And then you made your way into Vizsla Silver. And sorry, I was pronouncing it wrong before. But now you have this project here. So it's already producing Vizsla Silver?
It's a past producing district. We're not producing metal yet, but we are mining. So we're in the development stage. We have an underground mine that we're working at right now. We just have recently raised the money that we need. So we have 2 times our CapEx in cash and loans to build the mine. We're just waiting for our permits to be approved, and then we'll construct the mill, and we'll be in production by late 2027.
Awesome. So that's not really that long of a time frame here. A couple of years out, could be producing how many ounces of silver? I was looking, it was over 15 million per year estimated.
Yeah. So we, as companies go through their development cycle, you have various studies that you put out. Usually the earliest one that you do is a preliminary economic assessment, which is what we recently, well, I shouldn't say recently, it was July of 2024, we released then. And we're just working now towards our feasibility study. It should be announced certainly before the end of 2025. And as per the PEA, we'll produce an average of 15 million ounces a year, but in the early years, we'll produce closer to 20 million ounces. I can tell you, we've done a lot more drilling since that PEA was released. So the production profile will go up. I think it'll be closer to 20 million ounces for a number of years, beyond years 2. And that would make us the largest independent silver primary, single asset company out there. So really a standalone. There was
the largest in Mexico or the largest globally?
Largest globally, largest listed on any exchange.
Wow, that's quite the feat there. If this all plays out according to plan.
Yeah.
I got some other questions for you. So I feel like you've already answered this one. I was going to say, as a small cap player in the volatile silver market, what sets Vizsla Silver apart from larger mining giants beyond just size? But it sounds like you guys are potentially heading the way of becoming a larger mining giant yourself.
We that's our vision. So you asked earlier and I didn't really answer it. Our vision just when we started was to acquire a great project that we could put all of our kind of combined expertise towards. And then now that we have Vizsla Silver, our vision is to become the world's largest single asset producer, which we'll do through producing at this district, but then to grow to 50 million ounces a year of annual production by 2035. So in the silver space is very small. And then that has to do with, again, we talked about Mexico and you don't really see large concentrations of silver in many places around the world. And as a result, it's hard to mine just silver and become a silver miner. So there's really only a handful of them out there. There's Fresnillo, Pan American, Hecla, Coeur, First Majestic, Endeavor Silver, a small handful. If you compare that to gold, there's probably 100 times more companies out there globally. And more recently, you've had companies like Mag Silver, Silvercrest, Gatos, and one could argue Adriatic, which were single asset silver primary producers, and they were all taken over by larger companies. So you have this real gap. You have kind of the mid-tier multi-asset company up to the major multi-asset company, but you don't have another company like Vizsla out there right now that can kind of fill that gap and grow into the next mid-tier / major silver miner. And that's where you get rewarded as a shareholder, is that growth. From this point right now, when we get our permits to production, they call that typically the golden highway. Maybe we'll call it the silver highway for the purposes of this interview. But that de-risking move to cash flow is typically very well rewarded. Companies like Artemis Gold in BC have returned 600% over that period of time, and it's relatively de-risked because you're funded and you have permits. It's a great time to be a shareholder of these types of companies. But then as you go through that and then continue to grow, which is our plan, there's the potential for a huge re-rating in there. And I think that's what sets us apart, is that we're a young, dynamic, and very much driven group that really wants to grow and dominate this opportunity that we see here. So, other companies have more mature assets and they're looking for more safe ways to grow and kind of sensible, low risk opportunities, and they don't get the same torque that you get out of exploration, development, and production like we do here.
It sounds like a very interesting play. And you were talking about how some of these other miners were acquired. Is that a goal for your company, or to be acquired by a larger company at some point? Or your main focus is going on the runway on your own, and if a deal comes in, it comes in, but the main focus is to build this project under your own umbrella?
Yeah, well, I'm the founder of the company, wrote the first check for the first share. We're aligned with shareholders. We don't think our our value is being reflected in our share price yet. We think we're massively undervalued. And so if someone were to want to take us over, it'd be at a much higher price than this. And when we sit back and think about how are we going to maximize the value for this project and the others that we have, and that's, exploration ground that we've consolidated within this district that we haven't even drilled yet, we see getting into production and growing as the best way to maximize shareholder value. Now, it could happen that some silver company needs to make an acquisition. They want to pay us 100% premium. We'd have to assess that, of course. But we're dead set on developing this project and rewarding shareholders for sticking around for that.
Awesome. So how did you come up with the name Vizsla Silver?
It's so I have a Vizsla dog, or some people pronounce it Vizsla. That's why there's many different ways to pronounce it. I think we're probably mispronouncing it. Probably it certainly is Vizsla, but and it's a breed of dog. And when I started the company, I just got this Vizsla puppy, and it's a copper colored dog. It's high energy, and it's a hunting dog. And we were, hunting for metal, high energy company, looking for the next project. I thought it was an appropriate name for the company, and I always thought, okay, when we get a project, we'll change it. And we kind of fell in love with it, and kept the name, although it's not the easiest one to pronounce in Mexico, and but we love the name.
I like the name myself, so I'm happy you stuck with it. And it's good that it's close to home and that you made that connection between hunting dog, you're hunting for gold, and it's nice when you put two and two together and things come together that way.
Yeah.
How is Vizsla advancing towards production? Any updates on permitting, infrastructure, or partnerships that de-risk the path forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in the stage now where this year was transformative for us. We put out the PEA, we did further drilling, we submitted applications for our permit, and we raised the debt to finance the build of the company. We also raised another 115 million US in an equity financing. So we did all these things in order to de-risk the next phases for us. And the next phase following the feasibility study is really just permitting. We've started the test mine at the project. We're down almost at the ore level right now. That's a really important aspect of de-risking, because it allows us to decouple the risk of starting up a mine, an underground mine, which is separate from the mill. The mill is all the infrastructure above surface, and you can kind of get all the kinks out of the way early before you have the mill built. And that way, when you're constructing the mill, you can be mining underground, you can be taking material above surface, have it next to the mill in a stockpile, so you get cash flow sooner when that mill is built. So that's one of the major de-risking objectives that we have underway right now, which we should complete either by the end of this year or in early 2026. And then the real big one, the one that we're all waiting on, and I think is going to be a massive catalyst for the company when we do get it, is the permits. So in Mexico, you need to apply for the environmental impact permit, called the MIA in Mexico. And we've had a successful application process so far. We're expecting to receive that permit by the middle point of next year, at which point we build the mill, and that should take less than 16 to 18 months, let's say. And by that point, we should be pouring first silver by the end of 2027. So we've de-risked through the test mine, we've de-risked through financing. We've always stayed well financed, and the next major catalyst there is the permit. And I should add that this is a very simple, small footprint. It doesn't have any harmful chemicals or anything like that. We get all of our water on site. We've been very, very focused on how we interact with the local community. The local community's very much on side with what we're doing. We actually have a nursery where we're replanting trees that have probably never been germinated in captivity before, like local species there. that we're planting and reforesting as we go. So we've really focused on the environmental sensitivities around mining, and an underground mine has a fraction of the impact of an open pit. So we think that it's a straightforward project to permit in Mexico, and one that I think exemplifies kind of our focus on how we're good stewards of the land down there.
Awesome. I think that's really important to people, especially investing in mining companies, and just nowadays in general, there's a big green initiative where people want to put their money in companies that respect the environment. So that's definitely a good note to add onto there. It sounds like the company's quite well funded. How much cash is the company currently sitting on right now?
So in cash, we have $200+ million US that we've raised through equity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then we have another 220 in a project finance facility with Macquarie, the Australian bank. It's well known in mining circles. They're a group that lends for project finance like this. And then last year, at the end of last year, we spun out a company called Vizsla Royalty, and Vizsla Royalty is traded on the TSXV under the ticker VROY. Vizsla Royalty holds a royalty on basically our main mine area here. So in 2028, it should be making about $20+ million a year of cash flow based on the PEA that we've seen here, and that's valued at about $300 million Canadian here today. Vizsla Silver owns about 17% of that company, so we do have a meaningful about $50 million of equity in Vizsla Royalty as well. So if you put that all together, it's about $450 million of total financial capacity that we have. And our CapEx, what it's going to cost us to build the mill, is only about $225 million. So we're 2x finance basically for our CapEx, which is I've never really seen that in the mining industry. It's a unique.
Me neither.
So.
So what's the market cap of Vizsla Silver right now?
It would be about 2 billion Canadian. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So this is it's not a micro cap or small cap companies. A lot of these type of meetings that I do, they're for very small cap companies. This is a $2 billion company that owns also a 17% stake in another $300 million company. So this company is quite large, and they're funded as well. And so this sounds to be quite interesting to me. So maybe it's something that I might even be interested in throwing some money into. Is I'm very bullish the precious metals space myself, and the silver miners, in my opinion, do appear to be looking undervalued. And I think everyone's focused on the gold miners, but some of these silver miners, including your own stock, which I haven't heard of until you contacted me on Instagram. I didn't know about Vizsla Silver myself. So I think a lot of people, this is going to open a lot of people's eyes to this other silver opportunity that's available on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's still, as I mentioned before, we'll call it the silver highway. That next step towards production is typically very rewarding for shareholders. But despite gold's recent move, and gold definitely is the focus right now in precious metals, but we're starting to see a lot of interest in silver, and I see that firsthand when we speak to investors. I don't think the money, cash flows have come into silver the way that they have in gold yet, and I think there's going to be a drastic re-rating coming for silver. It's a very exciting time, and as basically the only company out there that's developing a mine of scale and consequence here, I think we're uniquely situated to receive a lot of that investor interest. And it's part of the reason why I reached out, is I want to make sure that we are well known and investors are aware of Vizsla Silver. It's if your CEO is not doing that for you as a shareholder of a public company, it's it's not great. You need to focus on awareness as a public company. So I think there's a huge re-rating coming, not only for Vizsla but for the silver space, and a lot of that has to do with just what we're seeing, it's kind of insanity right now in the silver market. We broke through 50, we got up there 54 plus, looked great. We're consolidating now a little bit sub 50, but I think it's a great place to be. And what we're seeing now is kind of silver's come back into the conversation as it's not just gold's little cousin anymore. It's starting to get a lot of early interest, but a lot of interest. And you see things like the London getting shipments of silver to cover their deficits there, their lack of warehouse stores. India is reinstating silver as a bankable metal. Their demand is going crazy right now.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, there's more and more headlines happening now with silver, and I think it also plays such an important role in electrification that I feel like the future is very, very bright for the metal.
Awesome. A few more questions for you. As a CEO, what's one lesson from your career in mining that you share with aspiring small cap investors navigating today's market?
Well, there's a few. I would say if you're running a company, you need to be sensitive to always raising money when there's an opportunity to do that. You'll get criticized for doing it, but it's the right thing if you're somewhat illiquid and cash free lists, or you don't have cash flow in a company. It's very important to do that. I think if you're an investor, it's important to understand cap structure, how deals are structured, kind of who's involved in it. Doing your homework, doing your research on various groups, I think is important when you're playing in certainly the Canadian small cap sector. And it's not that hard these days. There's resources like yours, 10 bagger stocks that you're doing these interviews. I think that's great. It's good to be able to kind of hear what the management of the companies are thinking. And online, it's just so easy to get a feel for companies. So I think it's all about doing research and being comfortable with the companies that you're investing in.
Well, you seem like a very straight up guy, easygoing, easy to talk to, and this company sounds quite interesting to me myself. And I know investors. We've seen a little bit of a dip in the silver stocks recently, as silver, as you mentioned, pushed upwards of 54, and then sold off down to 48. These type of moves, they're not surprising at all. After a big run, you're bound to see a little bit of profit taking. And I think investors quickly dump off some of the stocks due to any red in the metals. And I think that could present buying opportunities in some of these names, including yours, during consolidation, as you mentioned. And so looks to be quite interesting to me. I like this play. You're going to be potentially one of the largest silver miners globally. You have a great property. As you mentioned, it's going to be on the environmentally friendly side because you're doing the underground mining. And all in all, this looks to be like a very well structured company. And you also have that exposure to gold as well. So I'll just ask you one more question, and we can wrap this up. What makes Vizsla Silver different from other silver gold exploration or development companies, and why should an investor pick your story over another?
I think there's a few things. One is going back to that vision and the mission that we have. You'd be surprised, and I'm an investor, and I don't know, I probably have, I shouldn't even admit to how many equities I have in the junior mining space. So I see a lot, and I read a lot of material that companies put out, and you'd be surprised at how few actually have a clear vision and something that's attainable and measurable too, right? So we talk about that. We're aggressive in our vision of building the next meaningful, high quality, large scale silver producer, and we want to achieve 50 million ounces by 2035, and then we're working towards that. So I think that sets us apart. And we have the foundation of the Panuco project, which is a world-class tier 1 project underpinning that vision. So your downside's protected with with that. And then I think, over the years we've proven that we've been able to generate large returns on capital investments that we've or money that we've raised. So every single financing we've done has shown, I think, at minimum at least a 75% return in a short period of time. So we're hardcore focused on treating shareholders right and generating value for them, and that's because we are shareholders.
I think there's a big point that you didn't mention there, is that you guys are sitting on a lot of cash. There's a lot of these other companies, they just don't have any sort of meaningful cash position to even complete development, and you have enough cash that you said was two times, and enough to complete development times two.
Exactly. Yeah, we're focused, and it goes back to that idea of being good with being good for shareholders. There's nothing worse for a public company than mining, at least, and running out of money. That's the ultimate destruction, right? So we've never let that happen with Vizsla, and we're focused on staying very well funded, and we are funded for all the way into production, into cash flow, when we won't have to raise any more money ever again.
So, and that's something I wanted to ask as maybe a final question. Before you were talking about how you as a CEO use opportunities to raise capital for your companies. But in this case, since you already have enough capital runway to complete your development, is there any plans to raise capital in the future or in the near future?
We don't have to. So we're not planning on raising any more equity. We have more than enough cash on hand to cover all the exploration that we might want to do outside of the development of the project. And then we have the $220 million loan from Macquarie that will allow us to build the mill. The capex there is $225 as per the PEA. So we have that, and then we also have the VROI equity position. So we don't have to raise any more money. We have no plans to do that.
Awesome. I think that's one really important thing that people like to hear, because I think sometimes people wake up in the morning and they look at their stock and they see it's down and they see the company did a bought deal. It's not always what people want to hear. So knowing that this company doesn't need to do that for potentially ever at this point is definitely a very big bonus that investors would want to hear.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, for this opportunity to interview you and let people know about Vizsla Silver. What's the ticker again?
The ticker is VZLA on both the NYSE and the TSX.
And the CSC and the TSX, or
the NYSE.
Oh, it's on the NYSE as well. So definitely a lot of potential liquidity here from both sides on the stock, because Americans they get a lot more activity on the American exchanges than the Canadian exchanges a lot of the time. So to be listed on the NYSE is definitely a huge plus as well.
Yeah, we do. I think it's 2/3 on New York and 1/3 on TSX of total volume. So it does good liquidity for sure.
Awesome. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be looking into this, and it was great to meet you and talk with you, and hopefully we talk soon and get more updates on company.
That sounds great. I'd be glad to come back anytime.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Cheers.